Hello, my name is Barbara Kay, and on behalf of the Jewish Federation of Palm Beach County, I'd like to welcome you to our program, MOSAIC. Our special guest on MOSAIC today is the former Prime Minister of Israel, former Defense Minister, remarkable man, Ehud Barak. We'll be back right after this brief message.
When I was young, I went to Jewish summer camp, traveled to Israel, and participated in leadership development groups. Today I'm teaching my children that being part of the Jewish community helps keep our heritage and traditions alive and vibrant, and can be fulfilling, exciting, and fun.
At the age of 90, I started a second career, delivering meals to homebound seniors. Because I'm a senior myself, I know how tough it can get. If somebody is in trouble and needs help, we need to be there for them. As Jews, it's who we are. It's what we do.
When my family needed help, we turned to the Federation, and they were there for us. How good it was for us to know that we are not alone.
Community, like every gift, counts. Together, we can ensure a vibrant Jewish future. Federation and you, changing the world together.
Welcome to Florida, Mr. Prime Minister. What a pleasure it is to have you back here.
Thank you. I'm always enjoying being in Florida, especially in this part of Florida.
You're absolutely right. You have very good taste. I always knew that. You know something? You were Mr. Prime Minister, which is what I'm going to call you. You were also the Minister of Defense, and you just left the administration. Why? Why did you leave office in Israel? They need you.
I think I was in this round almost 7 years, Minister of Defense. Mm-hmm. It's quite a burden. I feel that I accomplished a lot, and I felt that probably it's about time to change, for some time to go into private life. I'm not extremely young. I want to spend some time with my family, with my wife, probably bring some more bread home and make sure the future of the family is secured. And I think, because I was not just Minister of Defense and Prime Minister, I was also Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Yes.
Interior, and I spent 36 years in uniform. So somehow there is a point in life where you say, okay, let's someone else take this burden. I'm always remain sympathetic. I keep in very close contact with Prime Minister Netanyahu and with my other colleague ministers and my successor, but it's time to let them move forward.
Yeah, but you were really, in regard to the White House, you were really the moderate voice in regard to what took place in the White House between Netanyahu and the president. You were the moderate voice. How are they going to get along without you?
No, that it is said that cemeteries are full of people that were irreplaceable. I don't think that any one of us is really irreplaceable. I was not moderate. I made sure that we detach ourselves from emotion, not because we don't have emotion, but because when it comes to statesmanship, it's extremely important to calculate in a cold mind the interests and make sure. And the administration, the Obama administration, before then the Bush administrations and Clinton administration. And I happened to be in contact in this way or another with every American president since President Ford. And I found that it was consistently, they were so pro-Israeli that we should not blind ourselves to the fact that America is the best friend of Israel, our best ally. I believe that we deserve this attitude because we never asked anyone on earth to fight for us. We never asked anyone to send a single soldier to put his life at harm's way in order to protect Israel. We asked for political support, for diplomatic support, some financial support, but never. We always were ready to fight for ourselves. And I saw that we can run with the Americans a relationship based on mutual respect we always demand from America on all levels, including I talked to everyone, including the president himself. I told them, you know, you have to understand Israel is a sovereign state. We cannot delegate the responsibility to the future of Israel and in a way the Jewish people into the hands even of our best friends, that you are by far the best friends. It's our responsibility and we expect you to respect it. But at the same time, I think that we have to respect the sovereignty of America, the major superpower on earth, and to understand that in certain issues we will have differences with the United States of America. It's normal, legitimate. We should not get too emotional about it, but to deal with it as a practical issue that had to be ironed out.
Do you think that Obama won when he first came in, as compared to Obama II, second term? Do you think that his priority is the peace process like it was? Is it on top of his list at this point?
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah, even more. You know, I think that the way that John Kerry is dealing with the peace process is not just continuation of policy that was pushed very forcefully by Hillary Clinton, both under Obama, but probably even more emphasized. And I think, unlike some of my colleagues, including my predecessor, my successor in the Ministry of Defense, I strongly believe that the intensity and the focus of the American top diplomat on this issue is positive and important for the future of the region, for the future of Israel. Because for many technical reasons, both sides, neither Palestinians nor the Israeli leadership, cannot be perceived as too enthusiastic to go for agreement. There is a technical problem of running sincere negotiation on peace in the modern era. When you start to negotiate, even behind closed doors, you put on the table ideas of potential compromise and concessions, otherwise nothing will be achieved. And with the penetrating media of today, it leaks out very quickly, and leaders on both sides are under the immediate risk of losing their power base long before they have an agreement or even know whether there will be an agreement in the future. So that makes it almost impractical. So a way should be found to shape, on one hand, a strong presence, so to speak, of whoever mediate this negotiation and the rest of the world to show interest in positive results, and certain technical capability to bypass this dynamic that I have just described by letting some issues be clarified in a back channel, far from the
public,
from the reach of the media and the public.
Yeah, public,
and
yeah.
only if it sounds or seems to be serious to push it to the surface and immediately act upon it.
All right, Mr. Prime Minister, lay out the negotiations of Kerry's. Lay out his direction. Can you?
Yeah, I think that basically he wants to achieve he would love to achieve an agreement, but that's probably impractical now. He would love to achieve a framework agreement. Even this is probably impractical now, to sign a framework agreement. So he now aims into a paper that probably will be put to the public in a month or in 2 months, a paper that will describe the direction of how the conflict should be solved in somewhat general terms, in order that both sides will be capable of saying yes, but. Each side will send, both Netanyahu and Abu Mazen probably will send some reservations, but that they will be able to, capable of saying yes, but. That will provide another period of 1 year of negotiations through which we hope we will reach a real peace agreement. That's his direction. Now the content is basically the content, I believe, you know, I didn't pretend to have seen the draft, but it's basically the same content that was the content of the policies of Hillary, and before then, I don't know, Condoleezza Rice and the Bush administration, before then, back to Rogers. It didn't change. Basically, America sees 2 states for 2 nations with a kind of a new border that reflects, on one hand, the situation before the 67, on the other hand, the situation that had been created in the years since the 6 Days War, namely that the main settlement blocks, Gush Etzion, Ma'ale Adumim, Ariel Kdumim, whatever, will be part of Israel. A new line will be delineated where the major settlement blocks and all the Jewish Israeli suburbs of Jerusalem behind the old line, all will become part of Israel. That will cover probably 80% or 85% of the settlers. And a Israeli presence, military presence along the Jordan River will be there for long term. Some places, some strategic sites should be accessible to Israel on the mountainous ridge. So the security of Israel should be protected, and side by side with it, a viable Palestinian, demilitarized but viable state will emerge.
You know,
that's the objective.
That sounds so terrific. It really does sound terrific. Sounds simple.
Painful, but simple, yeah.
Yeah, but you need an element of trust. First of all, Netanyahu said he's not giving up the IDF soldiers on the Jordanian border. No way. Isn't that true?
Yeah, I don't want to go into the details, but I can tell you that me too, I was the father of some very daring, far-reaching proposals to the Palestinian side, backed by President Clinton, to make it a basis for negotiation. Unfortunately, Arafat rejected it and turned deliberately to terror. But basically, all of us, myself and Netanyahu, even Olmert, I was defense minister of Olmert, we always said that an Israeli military presence on River Jordan, not necessarily at every corner of the Jordan Valley, it's not said, but a military Israeli presence along the Jordan River is a part of any viable security arrangement. I don't think that that's what will disturb the Palestinians so dramatically. There is a difference when you start to talk about the heavy divisions being deployed in places where normal civilian life of another country should happen. That's more complicated. But with the kind of line that we bear in mind, we can easily think of an Israeli division in Mishor Edomim, an Israeli division in Ariel Kdumim, Israeli division in Mechola. These are three places from where, with the tiny dimensions of Israel, it's a matter of 3 hours or 4 hours of movement to be positioned in any place under real emergency. So, you know, I want to tell you something. There is no way to make security plans foolproof against.
Right.
Well, it's never. It's something that doesn't exist in the real world. But we cannot give up our security, and I believe Palestinians understand it. Americans clearly understand it. They are ready to back us with the best equipment on earth and to show in deeds, not just in rhetoric, their real support and commitment to make Israel as safe as possible. What really have to disturb us, the Israelis, is the alternatives. And the same applies to the Palestinians in a way. If we cannot reach an agreement based on 2 states for 2 nations, it will mean that we will by default continue the status quo. But to continue the status quo for another 45 years can damage us. So we're not making them a favor. I keep saying that the essence of it, of the problem we have with the Palestinians, is both simple, as you mentioned, but very painful. Between River Jordan and the Mediterranean, there live 13 million human beings. 8 million Israelis, 5 million Palestinians.
Syrians now too.
A few Syrians, with clear national aspiration. If there is only one political entity reigning over this whole area called Israel, it will become inevitably either non-Jewish or non-democratic. And it inevitably is the key word. Because if this bloc of millions of Palestinians can vote to the Knesset, it will become binational state immediately, par excellence, and within a generation or two, probably a binational state with Muslim majority. If they cannot vote for another generation, That means that it's not a democracy, to say the least. And neither is the Zionist dream. So we have a compelling imperative to disengage from the Palestinians, allow them, delineate a line within which we will have a solid Jewish majority for generations to come, and beyond which there will be a vibrant, demilitarized but independent Palestinian state. I don't think that even the issue of settlements or anything should and can block it. When you really sincerely think of the slippery slope that weighs us down the stream if we fail to take the decisions. That's the real strategy. Of course, we are not going to dismantle the IDF. We will remain the most powerful country in the region, 1,000 miles around Jerusalem. Whether we have this formulation or another formulation about some issue with the Palestinians. And we remain strong. We should act self-confidently, with open-eyed, never give up our security vital interests, but not using them as a cue to create a situation where no agreement is possible. Right. It doesn't serve us.
On that note, we're going to take a break. We'll be back with the remainder of our program right after this brief message.
What if you could change the world? You can. We can do it together. With the Jewish Federation of Palm Beach County, you are here, and we are all connected. Together, we can enrich Jewish life, care for vulnerable populations, and build global Jewish community. That's what we do, every day, here at home and around the globe.
Welcome back to Mosaic. Prior to the break, we were talking about the possibility of peace, which is, that's the only solution. I think it was President Shimon Peres that said, now more than ever, the Middle East is in such turmoil that we have to make a decision. And decisions have to be made, but you have to have an element of trust. Coupled with that, we also have the situation with Iran. Now, how and why are the sanctions not working? Or if you think they are, what other alternatives do we have in case they don't? What's your opinion?
I'm far from being happy with the content of the interim agreement that had been signed. We thought that something more dramatic could have been achieved, but that's
past.
That's past. It doesn't matter. Once we have now this interim agreement, and there is a working on the permanent agreement.
Right.
I think that on one hand, Iran was limited a little bit, and even probably pushed few months backward, but at a very high price, namely that it got relief from the very extreme element of the sanctions, and remained a threshold nuclear power. Namely, they remained, even if they follow all what had been agreed in the interim agreement, they still remain very close, let's say, to the threshold of turning into nuclear power. So that creates a challenge. The ideal situation was to accomplish a permanent agreement that will fully dismantle them from nuclear military capability.
Precisely.
But that remains, I'm afraid, a wishful thinking, because the Iranians will always prefer a modified interim agreement rather than to dismantle the program. And the rest of the world might not find enough political energy and will to reverse the time machine and resume the kind of pressure that was on Iran before the signing of the first agreement. So we think that there is now a need to make sure that the world, led by America, will not lose sight of the original intention, namely to dismantle the Iranian nuclear military program and put them in a place where they are not several months, but many years far from turning into nuclear power. That means to dismantle most of the centrifuge. This means to dismantle the installation for do. This means give the international inspection and access to the place called Fortune, where they ran the tests of the weapons, and to make sure that they are not bypassing the whole thing by going into kind of pushing the other elements, the weapon group, the ground-to-ground missile, and so on, so to shorten the time of action. I think basically that, you know, we cannot cry on each other's shoulders about the past. Now there is a need for determination, not to blur the objectives. And I personally think what is missing all the way from the picture is a clear message that Khamenei should have heard behind closed door in a very equivocal manner. Namely, we, the Americans, the world, do not intend to humiliate you, to embarrass you in the rest of the world, but we mean business. You have to dismantle this military nuclear problem, or else you will face the consequences. We don't like it, but we will not be deterred. You know, when we talk about all the options, should remain on the table, we mean it. We, Israel, mean it.
Israel.
We expect others to mean it as well. And only if Khamenei hears and believes this message, he might be ready to make the tough decisions and dismantle his nuclear
I think he's testing. He's testing because I think the United States lost a lot of power in regard to their process and the way they approached it. Don't you think so?
Yeah, I don't think that I'm in a position in general and here to criticize the thinking of an acting administration and president on such delicate issues. I don't think that anyone doesn't want to put an end to it. But I think that the Iranians interpret the situation, probably wrongly, but that's the way they interpret it now. Yeah. That America transformed somehow the objective from no nuclear military Iran into no nuclear military Iran under this administration. And of course, it could be argued that even if any future administration will reach the same result, they will never be nuclear. No, but that's far from being the reality. I vividly remember how the North Korean bypassed it, how earlier the Pakistani bypassed it.
Yes, that's right.
It was exactly the same story.
That's exactly right. Well, let's talk about Syria now. Now, Israel has been at odds with Syria since 1948. Yeah. What does this upheaval in Syria have on Israel? What effect can it have? And what are the major concerns?
You know, the Syrian regime, especially since 1970 under the Assad family, they were on one hand very tough rivals in the battlefield, on the other hand very kind of disciplined in keeping the quiet. On the Golan Heights was the most quiet border that we had for decades. But they made sure that we will keep spilling blood through a continuous conflict in Lebanon, by proxy. But now what happens is a tragedy. And no one can predict what will happen. On one hand, you might argue that, okay, now the chemical warfare capabilities of Assad are going to be dismantled if he will comply with all the demands. But at the same time, the price of it is terrible.
It is.
The real lesson is that if a third-grade dictator, under a kind of a genuine rebel from within his own people, if he doesn't follow in the footsteps of Mubarak, who hesitated to make it too bloody, or Yanukovych recently in Kiev, who hesitated to make it too bloody, if he do not hesitate and ruthlessly employ his tanks, artillery, attack helicopter, jet fighters against his own population, using even chemical weapons, he might end up, at the bottom line, saving himself from being brought to The Hague or being deposed from power by using chemical weapons against his own people, defying the toughest possible rhetoric from the rest of the world, including of the United States. That might be the worst possible signal for the future. So the picture is combined. There are some promise in dismantling the chemical arsenal, but it is with a very high price. Now, for us, Israeli, we try not to intervene because whoever we will intervene for will be kind of marked on his forehead, collaborator, traitor, whatever. But we are following very closely the possible transfer of advanced weapon systems or ground-to-ground missiles or anti-air or air defense system from Assad to the Hezbollah, and we will do whatever it takes to avoid it. And then we, of course, followed the support of the Iranians to the Hezbollah on one end and both to Assad. And it ended up that on the Golan Heights frontier of Israel, because of this demilitarized region that was concluded between Assad, Golda, and Kissinger, it's a place where the Islamic Jihad and the extremists identified as a weak point of Assad because he doesn't have enough forces. So they come there. And when they ask how tactically to deploy, they deploy themselves with the back very close to the fences to our people because they know only ones who will not shot them in the back are the Israelis. That's the paradox of the military.
True.
Now with hundreds of thousands of refugees in Jordan and it's quite probably that Syria will disintegrate somehow under these pressures. It's too early to know what will happen in the end, but the recent months strengthened somehow Assad and gave a place for many Islamic jihadists and extreme terrorists of Al-Qaeda to deploy very close to Israel. That's a source of worry for the future.
Well, I have to tell you something. You said if you want to find predictions that die, just make them in Israel. But I hope that your message tonight to the Morgan David Adom people will be very positive, and I look forward to a wonderful, peaceful future. Please, God.
Thanks. I have noticed that you keep helping both Israel and Morgan David Adom.
You're right.
Through this Lion of Judah.
Thank you for being with us. And thank you for being with us as well. Be with us again next week when we have another look into the Jewish world. Goodbye from Mosaic.